A powerful earthquake measuring 7.4 in magnitude struck western Colombia early Monday morning, becoming the strongest tremor recorded in the country in more than a decade and one of the most destructive natural disasters to hit the region in recent memory. The quake hit at 7:34 in the morning local time, with its epicenter located near the small town of San Jose del Palmar in the mountainous Chaco department, roughly 250 miles, or about 400 kilometers west of the capital, Bogotá.
Ya como quedó el hotel, gracias a Dios, estamos bien.
Terremoto. Ay, mira la catedral, mira, se cayó el santo, se cayó.
According to the United States Geological Survey, the tremor originated at a depth of somewhere between 60 and 100 kilometers, a relatively deep rupture that still managed to send violent shaking across an enormous stretch of the country.
De papel.
De la iglesia.
Colombia's own geological service placed the depth at around 96 kilometers and confirmed the magnitude at 7.4, though initial readings had briefly estimated it lower before being revised upward. The shaking was felt far beyond the epicenter. Millions of people across Colombia experienced the tremor, with strong shaking reported in major cities including Bogotá, Medellin, and Cali. Alarms on cars and buildings went off across the capital as residents rushed out into the streets in panic. The tremor was also felt across the border in Ecuador and in parts of Venezuela, underscoring just how far-reaching the seismic energy traveled. Experts estimate that more than 2 million people were exposed to very strong shaking, registering at a level of 7 out of 10 on the intensity scale used by American seismologists. The worst destruction was concentrated in the western and central parts of the country, particularly in the coffee-growing region known as the Eje Cafetero. In the city of Pereira, capital of the Risaralda department, officials confirmed the highest number of fatalities, with local authorities reporting at least 18 deaths in that city alone.
Puta, ¿qué es esa mierda?
The mayor described the damage to buildings there as extremely serious. In Manizales, in the neighboring Caldas department, at least 2 more deaths were confirmed, and video from the city showed the tower of the historic cathedral collapsing, becoming one of the most striking images to emerge from the disaster. Additional fatalities were reported in the Chaco department near the epicenter, in the town of Quibdó, in Colima El Darien, in Zarzal in the Val del Cauca department, and in Tamasis in Antioquia.
Por poco no salimos, muchachos. Ay, gonorrea, temblor tan asqueroso.
As search and rescue operations continued through the day, the confirmed death toll climbed steadily. Early counts put the number of dead at around 20, but within hours that figure rose sharply, with some news organizations reporting the toll had climbed to at least 29, and others citing local officials, who said the number had reached as high as 47. Authorities cautioned that the death toll was likely to keep rising as rescue crews worked through collapsed buildings and reached more remote communities. In Cali, Colombia's third largest city with a population of around 2 million people, the mayor reported that residents were trapped inside at least 19 collapsed buildings, and emergency crews raced to free survivors from the rubble. Witnesses described watching entire clouds of dust rise over the city's skyline as structures came down one after another.
¡Salite! ¡Salite de la casa, estúpida!
Near the epicenter itself, the town of San Jose del Palmar, home to only around 4,800 people, absorbed some of the most intense shaking of the entire event. The governor of Chocó Department said the region was dealing with significant structural damage and confirmed injuries, warning that assessments were still ongoing given the difficulty of reaching some mountainous and remote areas. She also raised concerns about the possibility of aftershocks complicating rescue efforts and further weakening already damaged structures. In the nearby town of Novita, the local mayor said residents there had lived through the strongest earthquake in the town's entire history, and described the local health center as completely overwhelmed by the number of injured people arriving for treatment.
Espero que esté bien, esperemos que esté bien. Puta.
He added that the town's church and numerous other buildings had suffered serious damage, though no deaths had yet been confirmed there at the time. Colombia's interior minister said that more than 20 municipalities across the country had been affected by the earthquake in some way, ranging from minor cracks in walls to complete structural collapse. Officials also confirmed that the main quake was followed by a series of aftershocks, including tremors measuring magnitude 2.8 and 5.0, adding to the fear and uncertainty among residents already dealing with the trauma of the initial event. Emergency management officials urged people in the hardest-hit areas to remain alert and avoid entering damaged buildings until inspections could be completed. In Bogotá, the situation was far less severe. The capital's mayor said that while alarms sounded and residents fled into the streets in fear, there were no reports of serious injuries or major structural damage in the city, with only some cracks reported in select buildings. He noted that because the capital had largely been spared the worst of the disaster, the city's resources and personnel were being redirected to support the more heavily affected regions, expressing solidarity with the communities dealing with far greater losses.
Mira, bebé, estoy en la Plaza Bolívar, me tocó salir corriendo a la alcaldía. Mire esto cómo está, bebé.
The scale of the disaster prompted an immediate international response. Governments and organizations across the United States, South America, Europe, and the Middle East offered support and assistance to help Colombia's rescue and recovery efforts. Authorities in the United States said they were closely monitoring the situation and stood ready to help the Colombian government and its people, while also encouraging American citizens currently in Colombia to register with the State Department's emergency notification system for their own safety. Officials from Colombia's Geological Service confirmed that this was the strongest earthquake to hit the country in the past 10 years, and one of the most powerful in recent decades overall. The disaster comes just weeks after a separate deadly earthquake caused significant devastation in neighboring Venezuela, adding to a string of major seismic events shaking the region this year.
Muchacho, así quedó el estudio mío, mire. Ahí estaba el estudio mío, mire cómo quedaron todas las paredes. Mire cómo quedó la casa al lado. Mire.
Analysts have pointed out that Colombia sits along the Pacific Ring of Fire, a vast horseshoe-shaped zone stretching around the Pacific Ocean, where a large share of the world's earthquakes and volcanic eruptions occur due to the movement of tectonic plates.
Todo está hecho un caos.
As of the latest reports, rescue operations remain ongoing across multiple cities, with search teams working through collapsed buildings in Pereira, Cali, Manizales, and Quibdó in hopes of finding additional survivors.
Tranquila, Marcia. Cálmate. Tranquila, Marcia.
Hospitals in the affected regions have reported being stretched thin by the number of injured arriving for treatment, and displaced families are seeking shelter as authorities continue assessing the full scope of the damage. Officials have not ruled out further increases to the death toll as communication is restored with more isolated communities in the mountainous terrain surrounding the epicenter, and the country continues to brace for the possibility of additional aftershocks in the days ahead.
Alejandra! Alejandra, ¿dónde está?
Está adentro, sí, está adentro.
Ay, Dios mío, ya no más, por favor, Dios. Ay, Dios. Ay, Dios. Ay, Dios. Ay. Ya, por favor.
Marica, no. Ay, Dios mío.